So hello guys. Welcome to the fourth episode of our podcast. I'm again Jan Ace,
And I
and
am David. And
we have a
today we
guest
have a
today.
we have a special guest. His name is Philip. He's one of our college friends. Introduce yourself, Philip.
Hey everyone, I'm Philip. I'm 29 years old. I'm the college friend of David and Janice, and I'm really excited to be part of this episode in Two Guys, One Pod.
Also, he's taken. So, ladies, we got to line up. Anyway,
Wait, that didn't sound right at all.
That didn't sound right, man.
that's fine. We're Christians anyway. So, anyway.
Yeah, we'll edit that out in post production. No, we won't.
Anyway, so
Anyway, anyway.
before this gets out of hand, um,
Last time we had like a pretty light topic. Well, not really light, but like lighter than what we had like previous weeks. But now we want to be able to look for not look for, but we want to be able to discuss something that has been the talk of the town for the last month, the last few weeks or so, which is really like, I'm sure some of you have been tired about hearing this so many times, but we feel like we want to also throw our hat in the discussion as well, which is really like the whole Ravi Zacharias episode, which has all three of us have been personally affected by it. So we just want to be able to process what has happened, not just on a wider scale of the church, but also like us personally. Because I think the three of us, and that's why one of the reasons why we invited Philip here also, is that all three of us have had like in some way been affected by what has happened because we are in some ways have been touched by the ministry of Ravi. So it really is something personal for us. It wasn't just like something that happened at arm's length. What happened like recently with the whole scandal, so to speak. So the three of us will like try to take turns and just discuss like what has happened. So that will be what's gonna happen for this episode. Maybe we, maybe we can start discussing like how this whole like how did you receive the news and then how like it personally affected you and then how did you guys like how did you guys take that? I mean, so maybe you could start, Philip.
Well, thank you for letting your guest go first. When I received the news, it sucked. I felt bad, not really bad. That came a couple of weeks after because it was during a time that I was busy at work, month end stuff, and so I really just thought, oh, okay, this is bad. It sucks that it turned out to be true because I'd heard about this a couple of years ago. Even the allegations regarding Mrs. Thompson that were disregarded, and so I thought to myself before, hope it's not true, but I found it already a bit questionable that he was involved in something like that. But I brushed it off because I think I was going through something at the time, or I was busy at work or something career related. And then when I heard the news for real this time, when our church CCF released a statement about it, and they even shared the report, which I read in passing. I just browsed through it. I was just, I was sad, but then it took me 2 weeks to really process my emotions because it was only really last week in the thick of things that I was just so moved from sadness and disappointment to just gut wrenching anger. I was really angry. And I'm going to be straightforward and blunt here. I was really angry at Ravi because he deceived a lot of people. He deceived his own ministry. He deceived his family. He deceived those who he ministered to. And it was just so shocking reading the report, the full report later on,
right.
that I understood the gravity of what he did, and it's both sickening, saddening, and just angering at the lengths he actually took.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like I like I guess I got like the same reaction as you, Philip. At the same time, I don't know if I've been following it longer than a lot of people I know, because I think the first time I got wind of the whole scandal was like way back. I think that was in 2017 or 2018. What Philip just referenced, the the allegations against Ravi with Lorianne Thompson, who he allegedly had an affair with. And at the time, I, of course, as somebody who listened to Ravi, who has been edified by Ravi's teachings, I did doubt like what was being said. Of course, you hear about these allegations, and then like Ravi just says, "Oh, this person was trying to extort money from me," and then they go into having a non-disclosure agreement. So you immediately think, you don't think much of it. Like you don't think much of it. Like I thought, okay, so siguro it's been settled. So probably Ravi's telling the truth, but you had no reason to doubt like what was being presented to you at that time. And then of course Ravi dies, everybody cries. I was affected by that. Like, thank you, Ravi, like all that hashtag happening around the world. And fast forward a few years later, I think 1 or 2 years later, uh, the Laurie Ann Thompson controversy they surfaces in Christianity Today. And then afterwards, the bombshell drop, which I when
Right.
I read it, that oh my gosh, this is true. I mean,
Yeah.
like I can't doubt it. Like the whole scenario with the massage parlor, like it was just like man, like wow. Of course, at that time, I still had like that feeling of trying to wanting to feel or wanting to believe that it wasn't true. So may part pa ng akin. Kasi syempre, like, I mean, it wasn't just like me on a personal level, but at the same time, this guy was probably like the most recognizable apologist and evangelist like after Billy Graham. I
Hmm.
don't think that's exaggeration.
Right.
And but yeah, like progressively things just got worse. I mean, like things just got worse, and until like the final report came out, and it was just like I remember when that came out, I was like after my workout in the morning, and then I just had to read it, and man, like you didn't think it'd get worse, but it did get worse, and it was just like
Yeah.
man, like
Yeah.
like so many emotions, so many emotions like, flowing, like and oh man, like
I
yeah,
get. Yeah, I get you. I get you. For me, how I took it was, similar with you guys. I saw the articles in 2017. I had my level of doubt as well, if these allegations were true, because I mean, these always come up, and you don't know if it's true or not. And then when Ravi actually made a statement that he apologizes for making some inappropriate text messages, you feel like, oh, okay, oh well, I guess at least he admitted to his mistake and they had an agreement. You think it's everything's okay, right? You think it's things are just going fine and dandy. And then later on, when the bombshell came, I could not bring myself to read it because I saw Ravi as someone who well, short of looking up to, in terms of logically defending the faith. He's and when I talk when I've talked to my atheist friends, Ravi is always the person they have the most respect to. That while they may not agree on all the points, they do understand how he's able to reason, reason the faith, reason the Christianity, how Christianity would make sense, and if they were like their younger selves, they might have just believed and converted and something like that. So that's how powerful the words of Ravi are, and that's how it also, allowed me to put him in that level of pedestal. Like, this is a brilliant man. This is a brilliant guy, very God given, with God given talents. And then, just uh leading up to the report, of course, after the Christianity Today article, I started, feeling unease, but at the same time, not so much disillusioned just yet. You know, um, when it talked about the massage parlors, I was still processing na, oh my goodness, this is a guy, who took advantage of three women. And that was just all in my head, the three women. Maybe, before he died, he should have apologized to them or whatever. And, it just cited three women. And then the report came, you know, and it showed every single detail of what happened in the past 10 years. And it was just shocking. It's literally not for the faint of heart. It's disgusting, and I don't know how you would defend someone like that if you were to, because it's plain as day, bordering human trafficking from Asia to the US, and it's all kinds of disgusting. And for me, I wasn't I was I guess I prepared myself to be disillusioned, so I wasn't disillusioned. Was more of, really, I really felt disgusted because, man, this is gonna give, like, all those non-believers or those against the faith to say, like, I told you so. This thing is unreal. This thing is fake. It's all just mumbo jumbo. And maybe even for a lot of Christians, that's gonna be their conclusion, that, oh my goodness, um this guy who helped me through the faith is actually a fraud. Maybe what I believe in is a fraud, kind of thing. And, I won't, you can't blame people for thinking that way. And you can't just say, na, oh, don't put people on a pedestal. Man, he really was a brilliant guy. And even if you didn't put him in a pedestal, you'd be shocked. You'd be surprised, all things, because the layers that he went through to just to both justify and hide those things. It is, I don't know how, I can't put words to describe how horrible that whole thing was. That layers of just deception and, hiding things. So that's how it affected me. But, if I were to ask you guys, like, what does that mean for you now? Like, or what does it mean for me now that all these revelations? If I were to ask you, Janice, like, what what does it mean for you now, like, with all these revelations?
I think for me, it how should I put this into words? But it made me much more. It made me reflect a lot on, like, how we treat people who do go through abuse and the trauma in the church. That is what has got me thinking, because, like, a lot of people say that, oh, it makes you reflect on, like, it could happen to anyone, but a lot of people are also saying, and then I think I forwarded this article to you, Dave. Not, I mean, like, all of us are sinners, but not that doesn't mean like everybody's like a sexual predator. I mean,
Right.
like, that was pure evil. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the lesson that we should get from here is not to think about, like, why we shouldn't be, like, how we can prevent ourselves from falling into that trap, because that is in a way minimizes what Ravi did, which is really like
Right.
different level of evil. But what has got me thinking is like, how do we protect the Christian witness, and how do we actually protect people from abuse, from all of this co-opting of the gospel message for evil, because that's really what this was. And then after like looking at like being exposed to the whole Ravi scenario, I've been like, I found out like this has been going on a lot in the US actually, because like I thought that in the past I you would think that all of these sex abuse scandals only happen in the Catholic Church, but like I'm sorry, but like that was my perception with the whole like molestation thing in the past. But so daming lumalabas ngayon, like particularly in the Southern Baptist Convention, and then like uh, all of these controversies about like people within evangelical churches using their positions of power to be able to to do evil, really, like, and that like that disturbed me for a while. But now I'm at a place where I want to be able to do something to protect our
Right.
witness, because witness is like irreparably, not irreparably damaged, but very, very damaged with like this whole
Yes.
scenario, as you said. Like
Yes.
not just on an intellectual level, but like how can you say that? Like I can hear like all of these atheists now saying, how can you say that God saves people when
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it
I get
frustrates
that.
me thinking about it. Like it frustrates
I
me
get
thinking about
that.
it.
I get that.
But that's where I am right now, Dave. Like that's where I am right now. Like how can we as a church, the universal church, like not just our individual congregations, but like how do we protect our witness, and what can we do better for survivors of abuse and trauma?
Right.
I mean,
That's true. I just like to add. I guess what kind of allowed me not to be surprised about the Ravi issue, because like literally just a few months before that, um, I was, well, I will hold my friend in confidence that I'm not divulging, but that literally happened to a very, very close friend of mine, where a pastor literally manipulated her physically. Um, and it, well, I just, to not be taboo about it, he raped her, and he, and the only thing that he, but she, at that time, she didn't understand what was going on. Um, she did not understand what, uh, how to feel about it. And I think that's the biggest thing about people who don't understand how being raped or being abused feels. That it's not like, oh, why didn't you call for help, or why didn't you just do this or that. Sometimes it's because people you trust break that trust, and you don't know how to feel about it. That you want to feel like you want to trust this person, but somehow you feel like, teka lang, parang mali yung ginawa sa akin. Alam mo yun? And that
yeah,
level
yeah,
of
yeah, 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 yeah.
disbelief is what my friend went through for a while. And we were just talking to her about it, and we were saying, just, we'll help you. We'll file a, what's this, we'll help you file those cases, because this is not right. you know and then one of our other friends, who vouched to be her lawyer, wanted to do that pro bono. So, ganon. So what they, pero so yung my friend, yung friend ko na abuse, sinabi niya, actually, yun na nga, and this is how, and this is how a lot of people in the church would feel who went through this. Na tipong, oh, I don't want to ruin his reputation. That's what she was thinking. And I'm thinking, with, she was already abused, and that's the thing that she wants to do pa. She doesn't want to, uh, damage his reputation. And you can't say na, no, 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 you seek justice, etc. It might just be, so this is the thing that's going on to the head of someone who's been abused. They don't know how to feel about it. They might even be saying na, while they understand they were abused, they might say now, because this is a person I trusted, or this is a person I confided in, and this is a person who was, or who has some level of credibility. I don't want to tarnish that. Maybe that's what's going on in some people's heads. And that's literally what was going on in our friend's head. But our lawyer friend, kind of, um, who belonged to that church, um, convinced her na, okay, let's push through with some level of action. So they went to, and so the story isn't done yet because it gets worse. So they went to the church's council, right? So they were supposed to go through, like, um hearing, like an internal church hearing on the case, and they both put their cases forward. My friend put actually gave a made an affidavit that that narrates her experience of the whole thing. And the pastor did not have those, but um they just listened to him. And the reason why it gets worse, and maybe you can get an idea why it gets worse, because the church actually sided with the pastor. And when she was narrating all of this to us, we couldn't help but feel so brokenhearted. We were just like, why in the world would you? Oh, so what did the pastor get? The pastor was saying, no, okay, maybe we did something wrong, and then we prayed about it, and then he's not gonna do it again, kind of thing. And then he gets sanctioned for a year, and that's just it. While my friend lives with the trauma of living with this. And after that, she was really literally just bawling her eyes out. She was crying because nobody was siding. Even the elders that she trusted, she was really close with, the, all that they could say to her was, maybe you're feeling this way because you were abused by your parents. And I'm thinking, what the heck does that have to
Oh
do with
my
this?
gosh, that's so
What does the
terrible,
what
man.
does this
Like
have to
it's
do
so
with the
terrible.
case? What the heck does it have to do with the fact that she was raped? And
That's
then
so terrible.
another elder told her na, oh, don't get a boyfriend muna because it might happen to you again. Like, is that how you console someone?
No
You like,
man,
it's like
oh,
it's like
man.
you're telling her that she's asking for it every single time she's with a boy. Like, how what I've short the mind you, these I don't know if age is a factor, but I do have to say these were like boomers. But nevertheless, these are church lay persons who are supposed to be like filled with the word and the spirit, with compassion, etc., etc. And all that they can do was say these things. So I guess that's why I wasn't so surprised anymore when this happened to Ravi, because parang shucks, it happens. It's real. Real people go through this, and this is what real abused people um think or go through. And although now I do have to update, she's happier. She was able to actually um she was able to uh recover. At least that's what she says. I didn't want to pry anymore, but she's doing better. She's really making a lot out of herself. It's really just that for me, it really did affect me personally, because that was horrible.
No man,
Horrible to say
that
the
was
least. Now,
terrible.
it's,
That was
I
terrible.
mean, the church siding with a rapist is, I don't know what to make of it. You know. So yeah, that this is just to add to what you were saying, and going into like how it affected me. How about you, Philip? What did it mean for you?
To combine your question with Jan Ace's, I was really shocked and I was really angry and I was really disappointed. And I think how we can move forward with this as a faith is number one, we have to stop making sex a taboo topic. Because the more that we don't talk about it, not just for men, but for women too, it's something that's always going to be done under the table or behind closed doors. Whereas if you bring it out in the open, and I know I may not have the credibility to say this because I'm not married yet. I only have a girlfriend. But when you bring something like that out in the open and you discuss it freely and transparently, I think that's where the change can begin. Second of all, the church needs to know how to handle with allegations and even go so far as to investigate and substantiate what was brought forth. Hearing your story about your friend, Dave, that was just really sad. Maybe there was some politics also in play as to why the elders sided with the pastor, but I'm just spitballing here at this point. But they need to take that seriously, and I think this is also where um, the legal authorities have to be brought in because churches are still within the legal bounds of a nation. They still fall under the jurisdiction of the law of the land. And I'm not really sure about the context at this point, but I do know the Bible says we have to respect authority, especially when it's being being used to uphold good. And that goes for whatever faith you believe in, Christian, Muslim, Roman Catholic. The law applies to everyone, and if you are found guilty, then you must suffer the consequences. Walang walang palusot, no? Walang uh, palakasan. The church must walk its talk in that respect also, which transitioning my thoughts to what RZIM did, that took balls for them to actually not just go through with an investigation through an objective outside group
Right.
that specialized in sexual misconduct, but for them to actually publish the findings for everyone to
Yeah.
transparently know about.
Yep.
That took balls, and
Yep.
for me, that showed the remorse as a way of as the restitution for making up for the lack of action they did before. Because the thing is, which is also sad, you see in the report that there were employees that did question Ravi, that did talk to him, and consistent with other eyewitness accounts and experiences, Ravi, instead of being above reproach,
Right.
vehemently denied those allegations.
Exactly.
And that's what's sad about it, because I see the huge difference in integrity and character between the founder of said organization and the people within it. So much so that I know of two RZIM satellites that have chosen to cease operations ever since the scandal exploded. RZIM Canada and RZIM Africa. And when I read that, I was actually just so saddened. But at the same time, I felt a bit of hope because here was the organization picking up picking up the pieces,
Hmm.
and they were doing it so well. I mean, for them to just say, we can't continue serving in this ministry because of what has happened, that's actually true. They can't continue being a witness in that respect, and they just closed. But it makes sense. It really doesn't make sense to
Yeah.
continue a ministry where the founder just messed up big time. I even heard that they're thinking of reorganizing and renaming themselves. But to be fair, RZIM is, as an organization, is really doing a good job in the wake of all this. Another point that I'd like to make with regard to how can the church change and mature from this is, well, one, they have to have a stronger sense of transparency and accountability with their leaders, which I think connects to my first point, because if you're able to talk about sex as a topic that's not taboo, I think it's going to be a lot easier for any governing body in a church and its lay people, and its ministers rather, to open up about other things people wouldn't want to talk about. But that's the point of accountability. It's bearing your soul to another person so that you keep each other in check. It's not leaving a stone unturned. It's not leaving an area of your life hidden. But when you have that transparency and that comfort to just open up everything, you actually, protect yourself. And I think that's where the church needs to also grow, because if they're not taking actual stock of their ministers' lives, not just sex lives, but finances, thought life, family life, personal life, every little minutiae of what they do, then we will still have problems. Maybe not in sexual scandals, but there could be other scandals like um, broken family lives, um, mishandled finances. I mean, anything that people can use against you. I mean, especially when they're trying to discredit the faith in light of what's happened, they will use. So we really have to up the ante with regard to accountability, especially leaders. Most especially leaders. I'm not even talking about leaders who are publicized or who are known, but I'm talking also about any and all kind of leaders in the church, because it can happen to anyone, and it will cause a significant amount of damage. Any damage to the church is already significant. I mean, what's the difference between one person leaving the faith because of any sort of scandal versus 100? Sure, it's
Right.
quantity, but the fact that you lost someone is already sad, because that you personally, you stumbled someone.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember what Jesus said to the Pharisees, and it was a very stern public reminder. He said to the Pharisees, if anyone causes these little ones to stumble, he uses this image. It's better for you to hang a rock around your head and throw yourself into the sea.
Right.
That's how devastating it was, because Jesus probably realized the strength of a leader's influence. In fact, I'm going to make this connection. Uh, some viewers might think this is strong, but this is similar to what the Pharisees did back in the day. They showed themselves so pious, but what were they doing? They were stealing property from widows. They were allowing theft within the temple. And yet, when they were publicly confronted by Jesus as hypocrites, actors, and whitewashed tombs, meaning tombs that just looked good on the outside but smelled like rotten flesh on the inside, what did the Pharisees do? They got so angry instead of repenting. And that's the kind of integrity that we need to preserve, and that only comes when leaders make changes with the way that they are accountable, and even the governing bodies of churches, not just the leaders, not just the main pastor or the executive pastor, but even perhaps the board of elders. They really need to be more discerning and critical, because as we've seen, any scandal, and if it's proven true, any controversy will rock the body of Christ, and
Right.
there will be casualties.
It also is like a problem of, I mean, there's a problem, of course, of leadership when these things happen. But at the same time, I think also like on a personal level, I think, and I'm not entirely sure what's the root of this, but in a way, like a lot of the people in the church have also been complicit to a certain extent. I mean, like I would say, like I was one of those people who dismiss, in a way, the allegations made against Ravi, and and then really just that I've been like looking at the Twitter account of Laurie Ann Thompson, the lady who was involved with Ravi, and man, like you could really see like how like even the slightest like siding with Ravi was able to like really hurt her, because it wasn't just people believing in Ravi, but consequently it reinforced the idea that Laurie Ann Thompson and her husband were just out to get money, and that this was
Exactly.
just a whole publicity stunt for everybody.
Uh-huh.
And I think like everybody who believed Ravi
Yeah.
compounded it. And I would be guilty of that also, because I was complicit. I would say that outright, that I was complicit, and I'm not sure where we can weed that out within the, because it's not like I don't think it's a an isolated thing, because I talked to a lot of people when that news blew up, and even now, I think some people, even with that report from RZIM, are still doubting whether Ravi actually did that. There are
Yeah.
still some people who
Yep.
say that,
Yep.
uh, like, why are you talking about this guy? He's already dead. He can't defend himself. I mean, like, dude,
There's nothing to defend.
his own organization wrote about the report
Uh-huh.
already. His own
Uh-huh.
organization wrote about it. Wrote about the. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like,
Yeah.
and it's something that we need to work on as a church. Really,
Mm-hmm.
not again, not as our congregations, but like as like Christendom. You know? Like, yeah,
Right.
like,
So I guess in the wake of everything, like on a personal note naman, more than I guess what I think the church could do. Like for me, I guess it also makes me reflect that there is there's a huge value in um accountability. There's a huge value in, just not hiding things from people you're supposed to be accountable to. Like following the whole issue, or just following the whole narrative of how it went through, started a bit more than 10 years ago. His first visit in Asia, he got his very first massage with a happy ending, as they say. And it started from there. It started from there, and he thought he could hide in Asia. And when he couldn't hide in Asia, he would bring it to the US and hide it there. And he wouldn't even name the spa under his name. It was his friend who owned the spa, and he was just a silent investor, so to speak. And that's how he started hiding these things. And whenever things would prop up, or whenever he would be confronted about it, you know, with the accounts of what everybody's saying, he was just get angry and say things that, the devil is prompting you to say these things, and all these all those stuff. And you know all the more, it makes me realize, parang shucks, you can try to hide things, but you can't hide anything from God. Even if you, like, there's a sin that you there's a like what you call it, your favorite sin you'd like to indulge from time to time. I mean, you can't hide that. It's not something that you can push under the rug, especially when you're a leader. And we can all say, oh, the church should have been more accountable to Ravi. But did Ravi actually want to be accountable to the church? He did mention in the report, or I mean, at least the report did mention that Ravi had this aide, who a male counterpart. But I think that was really just a front to say na, oh, I'm being accountable. Oh, when I'm alone, there's this guy with me. Except when he was having a massage, so he was literally hiding in plain sight in this whole scenario. And for that, with in the wake of all this, you really do know that God is not blind. God sees this, and any point in time in the last 10 years, he could have come clean or totally stopped or silently resolve those issues, but hindi. It was all recurring. He would go to Asia, ask Arzim to pay for his trips, and use that money to fund his pleasures. Alam mo yun? At any point in time, in that 10 years is a long time. At any point in time, he could have stopped and said, I'm going to stop this. I'm not going to do this because I'm a Christian. No way. Like you said, Janice, it was literally just pure evil. Sinabi niya. So, again, how that reflects upon me, as in personally talaga, there's nothing, it gives a harrowing reminder na God, while we say na, okay, God is not blind, God sees everything, this is how you know that's real. This is how you know God can see everything. So the next time you're thinking of that little sin, you're like, maybe sometime when I'm dying, magkakaroon ng issue bigla. Actually, personally, ako na ano rin talagang napa-reflect talaga ako. And partially, na paranoid din. Parang, shucks, ilan ba yung taong na nagawan ko ng kasalanan? Siguro, balikan ko sila lahat. Alam mo yun? On a personal basis, ganun yung naisip ko eh. On a personal basis, napaisip ako, oo nga, no? Parang wala ka talagang matatago kay God. There is nothing you can hide from God. And at least for me, how I'm reflecting on it is, maybe I think I need to do just that. You know, just keep tabs on what now. I have a wife. I'm accountable to her. I say things. I tell things to her. I I I tell her how I feel about certain things, and she's really just my sounding board in all of this. You know, so yun. It's really more of putting safe. And definitely keeping in mind prayer. Like every single time you think of doing things, like prayer should really be on your mind, and honesty. And if you're really filled with the Spirit, you will do exactly that. You will be honest to whoever you're accountable to, whether it's your group or your significant other. That's really the fruits of the Spirit, and which also leads me to believe na parang shucks, maybe, just maybe, Ravi was one of those guys who was just used by God, but maybe he's not with God himself. Alam mo yun? Because even in his dying, dying moments, or not that we know his dying moments, but a week before he died, he was in an interview with Ben Shapiro, right? And none of the issues came up. The only thing he could say na, oh, I'm gonna be back. This is just a small setback, etc., etc. No remorse, nothing. It was really just him, parang like every day. It was regular everyday him, and I don't even know if he did feel remorse, which makes me really just question if if he is who he says he is. Like, and what I mean by that is, if he's really a Christian or not. Diba? Because the fruit of the Spirit will show itself. Yun.
Yeah, I mean, not to speak ill of the dead, but Jesus did say, "By their fruits you will know what tree they are." A fig tree will not produce grapes, and a grape tree will not produce figs. And it's very that was actually something that I had in the back of my mind, but didn't really manifest it until I spoke to David about it. I remember chatting with you about that last week, and that's when it really hit me because up until that point, I hadn't really read the report. I just glanced. I glanced at what RZIM said, but then I didn't read the actual document attached to the link. But then when I read it and I saw it, I go, "Wow, this is pretty comprehensive." Because what was so surprising was this wasn't just done in the past 1 year, 5 years, or even 10 years. The idea for the spas that he wanted to put up, well, one of the spas that he wanted to put up, began as early as 2004. And so if I go, okay, 2004, and if you're planning to set up a business, that probably took 2 decades to nearly 2 decades. He planned it. This was a methodical execution of what the person did. And I know we're speaking, it's this sounds like we're speaking ill of the dead. But take note, again, jumping off from what Jane said, his own company released that report. I think there's a difference when you speak ill of the dead, meaning you're basing accounts on hearsay, versus basing your story on concluded, determined fact, which is what RZIM did. And, I was wrestling with the idea of, okay, does Ravi's teachings about the Bible not make sense anymore in light of this? And you know what? Sad to say, I'll go so far as to say, yeah. Why? Because the guy's integrity was compromised.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
And if his integrity is compromised, how can if his character is compromised, if his own integrity, if his own trust is questionable, what more his actions? Let's take it from a macro level to a micro level. I mean, honestly, I know you guys will shoot straight with me. Okay, if you trusted me with something, whether something big or small in your perspective, like for example, Jan Ace, you asked me to reserve a manga for you. Pretty simple, right? You go to this site, just click the link, add it to cart, and then I'll send you the money to pay for it because it has a deadline. It's so simple, yet I missed that deadline. How would you feel?
I mean, yeah, like that would be off.
Right?
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, you gave me something so simple to do. I didn't do it. I didn't even have the mindset to tell you, dude, hey, I know I committed to this, but something came up. I just let the time pass and nothing happens. Whereas, for example, going to a bigger scenario, let's say you have a PS5 and I borrow it from you. You were nice enough to lend it to me. And for whatever reason, it breaks in my care. How would you feel? I say, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, it broke. I'm saying sorry already. I'm admitting what I did wrong. But how would you feel in light of how would you feel in light of the irresponsibility that I showed with what you trusted me with?
Yeah, right. There will be like you're gonna try to trust these guys to but that trust is like broken.
Exactly.
That trust is
Exactly.
broken.
Yeah, unless I buy you a PS5 and maybe something to make restitution for that, like maybe another PS5. So now you have two. But my point being, I'm okay, going from the micro back to the macro. If in those small instances, your trust would be a bit questionable with someone who's not even a leader, but someone who's your peer, your equal. What more someone who is not your peer equal, someone who is looked up to by millions, probably, yeah, millions of people. Uh, that just negates everything he taught because the sad part is what he taught did not match what he practiced. That was what really ticked me off as well because when I was going through a time in my life, this was in this was back in 2000, between 2012 to 2015, 16, or 17, those years. um what Ravi taught made a lot of sense, and it renewed my faith. But hearing these allegations, I mean, not allegations, sorry, hearing this truth come out that he was a sexual predator, ah, I really can't trust what he did on this earth anymore, sadly. And
Right.
yeah, and as hard as it was when I heard it from Dave, I'm not even sure if if he was saved
Yeah.
because, right? I
I,
Yeah.
mean,
I, Mhm. I don't
I
think he was.
I
I
I was talking with my dad the other day when I visited the house, and he just felt like he had to share that to me as well. Like he was a really big fan of Ravi, and when he read the report himself, he was really at a loss. It really affected him, and the reason why he was sharing it to me was he said that it was only that it took him a while to really process because and then the questions he was telling himself was pirang, ganun ba ako katanga? Alam mo yun? Am I that stupid to have believed this guy? He suddenly doubting like himself, di ba? Started to doubt himself na parang why did I believe this guy? And I can't blame him because what were the signs? What were the
right.
signs that this was he hid everything, maybe there were but I mean there were still tracks. Definitely he left some tracks, but
mm-hmm,
it had to take experts, it had to take
Yeah.
experts for those tracks to be uncovered.
mm-hmm,
Talagang forensics alam mo yun, yung phone forensics and the whole investigation just to uncover all his tracks, meaning he really hid them well. So, but what were the signs? He was intentionally doing all of these things. And, that's the only thing that my dad had to say na tipong, was I that stupid to believe him? Yeah, just jumping off from what Philip said. In any case, I think we've talked enough about how scumbag Ravi is. Sorry. But
was he's
is
no
or
longer
was.
with us.
No
He's
longer,
no longer
no
with us.
longer
I mean,
here.
that doesn't take out his scumbagginess. Anyway.
True,
um,
true.
but yeah, I guess my biggest takeaway, at least on a personal level, is how heavy accountability really is. And based on the article that you sent me earlier, Janice, about how King David, comparing King David to Ravi, yes, he did mess up, and he really did, pull himself away from his mighty men. He had like his 300 and his 30 and his 3, right? There's his 3 mighty men who was always by his side, but that one day he pulled away from the battle. He pulled away from his accountability group. That's when he fell, you know. And as much as he did try to go back, as much as he was very remorseful, um, which still earned him like the man after God's own heart. The wake of his sin was a destroyed nation. The wake of his sin as a wrecked nation. There will always be consequences. And what, what matters the most on a personal basis really is the remorse and how you go back, you know, and that really just makes me, reflect even more and to be more cautious, to be more accountable with my wife, with my groups, with my, just put so many layers of accountability on yourself because, we might think that we're more powerful than sin, but no, 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 yeah, we're not. We really need the grace of God and the Holy Spirit and the
Yeah.
systems that He allowed to put, so that we can battle this I mean the spiritual battles that we do. Yeah. Yo, that's really just my takeaway. How about you guys?
I, I was gonna bring up something that you said, but I'm glad that you did bring it up. A lot of people have been saying these are probably, the followers, the Christians and the followers of Jesus who are still having a hard time accepting what Ravi, one of their heroes, did. And they say, hey, yeah, David sinned. David did the same thing. And, God forgave him, and he's still a man after God's own heart in the Bible. That's true. But there's a huge difference between what David did and what Ravi did. Because David did a lot of scummy things too.
Yeah.
David basically committed rape because he used his power to get Bathsheba. He murdered, okay, he committed murder. He murdered Bathsheba's husband, Uriah, one of his men, and the third was he lied about it. What's the difference between what David did and what Ravi did? Which is, I mean, the sin was the same. There was sexual misconduct. There was character assassination because he vehemently denied the victim's allegations against him, accusations, and third, he lied about it. The huge difference was, though David suffered the disastrous consequences not only on a national level, but on a personal level, his family was never the same. That was his punishment. You killed by the sword. Oh man, God said, your house, your sons are going to live by the sword.
Right.
They're going to kill each other because of what you did. And, that's just the tip of the iceberg. But the difference between David and Ravi was that when confronted with his sin, David immediately repented. And some say that's why he's called a man after God's own heart. Because when confronted with sin, David immediately felt what God would have felt, which is sadness, remorse. Well, God, not that God would feel remorse for sin, but God wouldn't respond positively to sin. And David repented. Unfortunately for Ravi,
Mm-hmm.
he had all the time in the world to
Yeah.
repent. But as to the report and as to people close to him or even his family members, we have not yet heard any of them say, Mr. Zacharias, or Ravi, or my father repented for what he did.
Right.
And that was the most harrowing fact. That was the most harrowing thought I had. And when David shared to me, I really don't think he was saved because he planned it. And I read the report and I go, this is pretty comprehensive. This even goes back from the 2010s. This reaches mid 2000s. So it's just devastating. But also in light of what David said, it's not really surprising as well if you check out the report. And I, I hope that's a lesson for all of us who have been affected, a great deal or not, who are personally involved, invested or not, that this thing happens. When you sin, there will be effects, and when you sin, it will be found out sooner or later, and that you may fool everyone around you, but you can't fool God. If you believe in the Judeo-Christian God, well,
Yeah.
you can't fool him. Let's not even stick with the realm of our faith, okay? Harvey Weinstein, come on. Dudes from Hollywood,
Yeah.
and that was exposed.
Right.
It was later, not sooner, but he still got his comeuppance.
Right. Thank you, Philip. How about you, Janice? What's your like takeaway?
Oh man, so much to unpack. I think like with the whole thing, but I think it just brings you back to God. It just brings you back to God, like how the only person that can restore any damage that has been done
Right.
is Jesus. It's really the Lord. And I went through like I go back to what your dad said. Like I didn't go as far as saying, "Oh, this guy fooled me," although he did. But like at the
Yeah.
same time, like I like the days after the report, it really like disturbed me. And but what really like I found solace in how I said like I'm reminded of like what Peter said in scripture, like how like Jesus was telling Peter like are you gonna leave me also? And then like Simon Peter says like to whom do who else will we turn to, Lord? You are the resurrection and the life. And that
Right.
like I told myself like who where saan ka kami pupunta, Lord? You are the resurrection and the life. And then like all of these things that muddled the whole everything, it just brings you back to God. And
Right.
I just want to be able to move forward, whether it's being a better follower of the Lord and just
Right.
being conscious of like any sin that is in
Yeah.
my life. I want to run to Jesus.
Right.
I want to run to Jesus.
Right. Yeah. I think same. I think we can all talk about Ravi Zacharias, which I think we can all talk in heft about. But going back to personally, I think you're right. That's the only thing we can do right now is to go to Jesus, and that's the only thing that can restore us. He's the only thing that can restore us. And is there that's what King David did, right? He went back to God after all these things, and God restored some level of honor, even if he still screwed up after. But God can restore broken things, and I think that's the only thing we can hope for. I think nawala si Philip because of connection.
Yep. Hello.
Yo.
Hi. I
Right.
don't know what happened. My screen just froze.
You
Then I could
dropped.
hear the audio, so I kept talking, and then the audio stopped, and then I just had to restart my laptop at
Right.
that point.
Okay.
So I found that a bit strange.
Anyway, thanks guys for
Yeah.
listening to this episode a bit. So thanks Philip for joining us for this episode.
Uh-huh.
Definitely nice discussion and insights from everyone. And
Hmm.
I pray that everybody moves on from this whole episode.
That's true.
Not this episode, but like the whole Ravi episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
With hearts much more focus on the Lord. That really like the whole prayer that I have, and I think like everybody here has, like in terms of how we want to see the church move forward and us
Right.
individually move forward from the whole scenario. So thank you again,
Thank you.
our 11 followers.
Yeah.
Hopefully more.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, see you guys next episode.
Bye.
God bless.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Hey, Janice, Dave, thanks for the invite. I had fun. God bless you guys.
All
God
right.
bless you.
Bye.